Dany's treatment of prisoners is eerily reminiscent of her father's. Tyrion reconnects with Jaime, Sam gets tired of the Maesters, and Jorah Mormont returns. And so does Gendry. And then they all hook up with the Hound and Dondarrion, and look, we're getting the band back together. Like all of the bands. On this week's Game of Thrones, Season 7, Episode 5, Eastwatch. Hey everyone, D here, and welcome to this week's review of Game of Thrones. So yes, beware the frozen hand of spoilers. Alright, so this week we are dealing with a bit of the aftermath from the big Battle of the Loot Train from last week. And really starting off pretty much immediately afterwards with Jaime being pulled out of the water, out of the river by Bronn, who was the one that managed to jump out of nowhere and save him from the fiery blast of Drogon. And we really get to see the devastation from the aftermath of this battle. And I mean, I think Bronn puts it pretty well straightforward about the danger of the dragons and what the hell were you doing and didn't you see what was going on. Jaime is overwhelmed at this point, and we really even see it when Tyrion is later on walking through the battlefield, seeing how much of this devastation, how many troops were taken out, how much damage was done by one dragon, and she's got two more. So this is great because we're really seeing Jaime getting a sobering look at the reality of what this type of war is going to bring. And unfortunately, it seems to get a little harsher. I mean, harsher for old man Tarly, for Randall and his son Dickon there. God, that name still gets me. And I love Tom Hopper. Big fan of Black Sails. It was fun seeing him jump into the role of Dickon. And I was hoping that he might last a little bit longer. But this is pretty much the end of him and Papa. Dany's insistence on everyone bending the knee. It's strange. As soon as Dany has gotten to Westeros, I think that she has gotten more obsessive with the fact that she should be queen as opposed to when she was working at it. You know, when she had nothing, when she was working herself up and getting, Missandei and freeing the slaves and doing everything over there in Meereen, there was a lot more compassion with her. I mean, yes, she was very straightforward, but she was still earning, looking to earn the respect of even the people on the other side of her. What this scene showed is that really her choice isn't much of a choice. Let's just say it. Bend the knee or die. That's not really a choice. That's your standard thing. And of course, most people are going to bend when you have a giant dragon perched on a hill behind you. Very impressive. But Randall, no. And I think Tyrion brought up a great point with him. It was like, you didn't have a queen before. You had Olenna Tyrell that you would pledge to, and now you're saying that you're consistent with Cersei. I'm not sure what Tarly's whole... I don't know what his plan behind all of this was, or real, mind thinking, because it made sense when Jaime was kind of threatening him to bring in, look, this is the way it's going to go. We're going to wipe out Olenna. The Tyrells are going to be gone. You should really join with us. That's a practical choice. At this point, this is really more pride, and even Dany had points that out. You're choosing your pride over staying alive. The fact that Dickon jumps right in, and that Randall doesn't do more to stop him, I thought was kind of shocking. I mean, it's a belief of honor of going out, but Tyrion was right. A whole house is going to be wiped out. Well, Sam's still alive. And I don't know, he had chosen the black, so he'd given up everything. But now that he is the last of the Tarleys, I wonder how that's going to work out. Especially if eventually down the road they end up finishing the White Walkers. I wonder where that's going to leave him. But he is the last one. And evidently he doesn't even get to find out today. As we'll find out later. But anyway, and I think the effect of that whole last scene also, when they bring him up and put him right in front of everyone and just have Drogon blast him by fire. that is overly harsh. One, it's impressive to the other people. I mean, if the dragon growling at them is not going to make them bend at the knee, certainly and obviously setting the commanders on fire is going to do it. But this is sadly very reminiscent of her dad's, Aegon's, the Mad King's approach, burning all of his enemies. And that's really what Varys is getting back to when he's speaking with Tyrion later on, is that memories of seeing, yes, I said that it wasn't me. I mean, that was kind of very emotional, very powerful moment where he's talking about, look, I was just the whisperer and I didn't do these things, and that's what I kept telling myself over and over again. His point being here, we're trying to rally Tyrion, is she has to listen to her advisor. She can't get caught up in that obsession of leadership. If she does, she's going to fall right in the same path that her father was. And that is really what Varys and Tyrion are mostly concerned about. Varys, obviously, very straightforward because he witnessed all of it. But Tyrion sees that quite well, quite clearly also. And I think that's really the kind of push, is to try and get her to listen to advisors and not be so insistent on this whole bend the knee crap that she's sort of obsessed with. Now, as for Jaime and Cersei, we can really see their relationship kind of in a state of flux right now. A lot of big pendulum swings. They're far apart, and then they're together, and then they're coming apart. I mean, certainly Tyrion's play into that dynamic has its effect. But we can really see as Jaime's coming back from the battlefield, trying to relay to Cersei the devastation that was caused, how overwhelming the Dothraki is, and the fact that only one dragon did all of this damage, took out all of these people. I mean, it was... You can really see how he is trying to explain to Cersei, who is pretty much latched onto the idea of being queen and is not letting it go for any reason. How that relationship, how those energies are going to be kind of butting heads, as he's trying to describe just how mad it is to try and continue this particular war, and Cersei's still trying to be unwilling to accept truths that are put right out to her. And really demonstrated perfectly as Jaime tries to tell her about Tyrion, that it wasn't Tyrion that killed Joffrey, that it was Olenna. And even then, Cersei, and naturally so, would just ignore that and say, you don't know what you're talking about. But Jaime does bring up a really good point. Who would you want your daughter to marry, Joffrey or Tommen? And I think that is the point that kind of gets that through, which may be why later on Cersei is not quite as counter to the idea of Tyrion's plan as we might have suspected. Now, it could just be that she is so angry she has put all of that emotion aside and is just, you know, trying to just play the role right now. I mean, it's hard to read off of her. Certainly when Jaime told her about that meeting with Tyrion, one of the most impressive things was her complete lack of reaction. She didn't blink, she didn't move, she didn't twitch, she just stared at him like waiting for the next sentence to come on. But we are starting to see how maybe the idea of this battle, since she can't necessarily win it outright, Cersei's still very much a planner. So okay, if we get an armistice, if we do a ceasefire for the moment, if we meet up, how can Cersei use that to her advantage to either rally troops or find some little backstabby way in order to counter? And that last little bit, when she talks about we're doing it for us, and brings to her stomach, oh, that she is pregnant. Now, the idea that she is going to acknowledge Jaime as the father, you can really see how that affects him, because when his daughter died right in his arms, the last thing she said to him was, I know you're my father and I'm so proud of it, and I want everyone to know I don't want to be afraid of that. The idea that he could actually be a father to his children, I think is more than he could hope to have. I mean, as a king's guard, he can't really wed, he can't do any of that stuff. So this is really the only chance that he could potentially really be a father in that sense. And to acknowledge their whole relationship, and she's willing to do that, that is a great thing. And that certainly warms him up. Any of that fear that he might have been feeling from her with her kind of psychotic focus and ignoring the whole battle thing, that sort of melts away. Now they have a relationship. Now they are together. Until her last line, don't ever betray me again. And you can see that they're in the hug, they're embracing, and that look on Jaime's face, how everything just fell. She can feel us no matter how close that he gets to her, no matter how much he loves her, that she will turn on him in an instant if it serves her. And he's just starting to see that. You know, one of the coolest things in the world would be petting a dragon. You know it would. That's why that little bit is my Seed of the Week for this week. And really because there's a lot of things going on. One, it's super cool. You have Drogon land up with Daenerys on his back, screaming, yelling, walking right up to Jon. And at this time, unlike the first time they saw the dragon, Jon doesn't move, doesn't flinch, doesn't do anything. Just pulls off the glove, wait till he comes off, pulls off the glove, and reaches up to pet. The coolest thing. And there was so much there. One, it's his strength of character. He is not afraid. But as the dragon is smelling and reacting and see the kind of eyes blink as Jon starts to pet, I am wondering if Drogon is smelling the Targaryen in him. And this is what we're starting to represent strongly right here. It was certainly enough to surprise the heck out of Dany as she's on top, wondering if Drogon's going to take that bite. I mean, you could see that moment where she couldn't see Jon. It was just Drogon's head. And you know she was thinking, it's munch time right here. But no, Drogon accepts the pet, and accepts that comfort and that closeness. Now, on many levels, that's just going to draw Dany and Jon closer together. Dany is certainly impressed with what she saw. Not only his strength of character, but the fact that Drogon is willing to acknowledge it. And, with their little conversation about children and beasts and things like that. I mean, that's all pretty natural. But that connection with the dragon to Jon is really important, especially when we start to look into that big reveal in Sam's scenes. I mean, not Sam specifically, really Gilly. When they're gathered around the table and Gilly is reading off the Maester's scroll, who recorded all of the windows and shits and steps and everything there. But the statement about Prince Rhaegar, because this is that big, Rhaegar plus Lyanna equals Jon, and as we saw that Lyanna Stark was in fact Jon's mother. That's what Bran went back in time and had seen last season and season before. But what this says, and very quickly and very quietly, is that Rhaegar got an annulment and then was remarried immediately in secret in a place with Dorne, which is where Lyanna was. So what this would mean is that Jon isn't a bastard. If his parents were actually married, then he's not Jon Snow. He's officially Jon Targaryen, heir to the throne. Now, he's Rhaegar's son, and Rhaegar is Dany's older brother, so I'm not quite sure if it just stays with the men in the line or if it would go on. I don't know what the rules are with Targaryens and all of that. I'm sure it's a little different than every other rule of succession. But it certainly puts him in line to be official. So now we have a real interesting thing. Not only is there the potential attraction between Jon and Dany, and yes, that's aunt and nephew. I mean, look at that as you will. But now it's almost a competition because, yes, she is an heir to the throne, but he is also a legitimate heir to the throne. And that can make a big difference going forward. And of course we have our two big returns this episode. We have Jorah returning up to Dragonstone. Dany very happy to see him. Nice little moment between him and Jon too. Obviously Jon has a certain respect for him due to his Jorah's father. But I think there was a little bit more of that, both kind of loving Dany. Well, Jorah loving Dany and Jon being a potential suitor. There was a little bit of eye contact back and forth, I think a little bit of measuring up. But it's good that he is back for like the 5 minutes that he was there before he took back off to head up to Eastwatch and do the big mission. But that's what he came back for, to do the work. It's great to see him. He's going to be a very valuable contribution to the group, back in the band. But we also have Gendry back. I keep wanting to say Gentry, and that's totally wrong. I'm thinking Dick Gentry and Holistic Detective Agency. Gendry, who's in Game of Thrones, back looking good, looking strong. Love the Warhammer. Oh, just a bit of beauty. And I love the fact how he was so ready to go. Like he's saying, is like, he was answering Davos before Davos even finished asking him anything. It was like, great, let's go, let's get out of here. You think that I want to stay here and work with the Lannisters? You're not. So, glad to have Gendry back. Certainly very useful with the hammer. While Davos is smooth with the coin and the words, that doesn't always work, especially when Tyrion pops back up before the guards leave. You knew that. You're going to recognize Tyrion. Little dwarf with a scar. But that does get to show how Gendry is very adept with that warhammer, and that is going to come in very useful as they head up to Eastwatch and then north from there. And those Eastwatch scenes were cool. Again, it's really, again, that getting the band back together. I mean, and how many people are now joining up? We, of course, have Tormund up there, who had to deal with Jorah's father, Mormonts. Then we have Jorah knows Dondarrion, who is down in the cells. Then, of course, we have the Hound, who is kind of connected with everyone, and that Jon hasn't even seen back since season 1. Did help. I wonder if it's interesting because even with the Hound connection there, is Jon going to be able to tell him that Arya is in fact alive and is still alive, and that Sansa is okay, since the Hound took care of both of them at some point. So it's just, and then of course, yeah, we have Gendry dealing back up with like, hey, now we have these crazy brotherhood of the band. It was really kind of fun. It was very cool. Now we are getting towards the end of the series, so of course all of these disparate threads now have to start to come back together. But it is very cool to see how all of these overlays start to come back and how all these characters with all of these connections are now starting to hook back up and join together against, of course, the big fight. Now, of course, they're going against a little fight right now, which is going to steal a frozen zombie. How they're going to do that? That's going to be tough. I mean, I'm assuming their plan is to try and grab a straggler, but you can't kill him because you want to be able to show that it's a White Walker. So you got to take him alive away from the big group and then still get away from the group and back behind the wall before the rest of them come. They've got a big job ahead of them. And walking through the gates there in that bitter cold, man, heading back into the north, that's going to be exciting. Oh, and before I wrap up, Arya and Sansa. Arya's very observant. Do not cross her. Interesting little scene there between Sansa. I mean, okay, how the lords are ready to turn on Jon in a heartbeat. I know a certain amount of time has passed and he has been away. But they do seem to be willing to go whichever direction they feel like at the moment. They're not very dedicated, it seems, most of the time. But their willingness to try and lift up Sansa, now good for her. And I'm sure Littlefinger likes the idea of Sansa being lifted up over Jon. Arya, on the other hand, does not appreciate. Sansa did not speak down Jon. She did speak in support of him, but not as loudly as Arya wants, because she can see, and it's a result of the advice that Littlefinger gave to Sansa. He said, run all of your battles in your mind first. The problem is that someone like Arya can see that. And that was the point that she was trying to see, is look, you are trying to think of all of these different steps ahead. Yes, you want to be supportive of Jon, but if things go wrong, you also want the support of the lords, and therefore you can't push them away. She's playing this multi-tiered battle, and Arya can see that. And of course she doesn't trust Littlefinger, which is why she was able to follow him around like a little ninja. But how much of that was she suckered into? How much did Littlefinger know that he was being spied on, and that's why he maybe left that scroll? Now the scroll that they did find, that's all the way back in season 1. I had to rewind and freeze and do a couple of things to try and read it because you couldn't really see all that much. But it seems to be a note that was sent back up to Winterfell to Robb from Sansa right after Robert Baratheon died, was killed, died due to his wounds. And then when Ned tried to keep Joffrey from going to the throne, to claim it back because it really belonged to Stannis, or one of the Baratheons, simply because Joffrey was not Robert's son, which Ned had figured out. So this seems to be a letter that happens after Ned got arrested, trying to proclaim to Robb, hey, so we don't have anything go wrong to maybe try and save Dad's life, you've got to come down to King's Landing and bend the knee. So this is all the way back before Ned got his head chopped off, all the way back in season 1. What the point Littlefinger is trying to do with this, I am not sure. Is it trying to undermine Sansa in the sense that she is waffling and therefore maybe needs support? Maybe that should be why Littlefinger should marry her or something like that? Or is it just trying to split between Arya and Sansa as kind of a distrust thing? Alright, just a few last things. One, Brom. I love Brom so much. I'm glad he saved Jaime. But really his discussion with Jaime at the beginning there about, what the hell were you thinking? Did you not see the dragon between you and her? And of course the line that dragons are where our partnership ends. It's just, I love how it was very straightforward, and also willingness to be there. He was Tyrion's first man. First he was Tyrion's man before he became Jaime's. So I like the fact that Brom was willing to help orchestrate that little meetup between the two of them. However, I also fear for him because Cersei is aware of that choice of what Brom did, and you never, ever, ever want to be on that side of Cersei. So might be time for Brom to leave King's Landing. Oh, the scene between Gendry and Jon there. Oh, I love that. The kind of two bastards get together, which is funny because, of course, last season we had the Battle of the Bastards, and this is like Bastards United. Joined together because their bastard fathers liked each other, so therefore they should get along. It was a very cool scene, a way of sort of measuring back and forth, especially as Davos had told Gendry not to say anything. Gendry is not the type of person to avoid it. And if you're going to be straight with anyone about this stuff, it's going to be Jon Snow. So I just thought, I love their little connection, and you can see how those two, they're going to have a strong connection going farther. Okay, so Ned's not really Jon's father, but that's entirely beside the point. Oh, best line of the night, though, that goes to Jon Snow right at the end when they're up at Eastwatch. We're all on the same side because we're all breathing. That keeps things nice and simple, doesn't it? Now, of course, Bran's approach to spying on the army of the dead did not work out well. One, I love the fact that the three-eyed raven sent ravens to go look in the north. I just thought that was funny. But quickly turned around by the Night King, which continues that question is, how is the Night King able to do that? What is the connection between him and Bran? Like I mentioned last week, there are some theories. I'm not going to go into it right now in case nobody else wants to hear it. Jump onto Reddit. You can look at the Bran Night King theories. But that would be a really dark direction to go. And the more they do things, the more that theory, in my mind, starts to have legitimacy. Alright, so I think that's going to wrap things up for this week. Now, 2 more episodes left this season. And you know what always the second to last episode is? The big battle, and it looks like we're going to do the same this week. I was hoping we would see some Eastwatch action going on this week, but no, it looks like it's all being saved to next week. From the preview, it looks like it's all north of the Wall. It's all dealing with White Walkers. It's trying to steal a White Walker to bring back and show Cersei and Dany and everyone else. So that's, not everyone's coming back. I'm just going to say it right now. Not everyone is coming back. We're going to be losing people. Oh, and real quick, I just want to say thank you to all of you that have been so supportive with my big technical problems last week. Sob, Cinny, Simba, Learned, all you guys, thank you really so much. Your words were very kind. I appreciated all of your thoughts and really support in pushing me to get things done. And your feedback is what gets me to come back here every week and to keep doing this, rain or shine, vacation or not. So thank you guys so much. You are why I am here, and without you, I'd just be talking to a camera by myself, so thank you. Alright, so if you did enjoy this review, please go ahead and hit that like button. Thoughts, ideas, comments, you know I like them, down in the section below. Let me know what you're thinking. What are your theories, and do you like the pace, the way everything is going on this season? You could always catch me on Twitter and Instagram. I'm at Darren Jakes. Now, if you're not a subscriber, it's really easy to be one. You won't miss any of these reviews, and you can do it by just hitting my face right here. Nice and simple. And I'll throw up our latest review for Preacher right over here, and you can check that out. Alright, so that's going to be it for me tonight. I am D, and I'm out of here. Catch you guys next time. Bye-bye.